Honestly, Mike, I I love career change, people. Love it. And I think the main reason that I love it so much is because they want to be here, right?
Mm.
Like if you have somebody that is let's take a skilled trade or even a programmer, right? Like at our company. These are jobs that a lot of them had when they were 22 years old, right? They went to school, they were an apprentice if you're in the trades, right? And then, or maybe you
Yeah.
went to a boot camp or you went to college to become a programmer, right? So this is what they've done. It's what they've done since they were 22. It's what they've always done,
Yeah.
what they knew they were going to do. And maybe you get burnt out. Maybe it wasn't, the job you wanted at 22 or 18 or 19 isn't necessarily the job you want when you're 35.
Matt, welcome to the podcast. Matt Uramovich is our head of talent. And one of the things that we've been talking about a lot lately is this idea of a pending huge change in the labor market that is impacting a lot of the clients that we serve, but also kind of like how we might do business as well. And so maybe, Matt, let's start with a little bit of tell us about kind of some of the stats that you've been tracking and kind of what the big impact is.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some huge stuff out there, Mike, and thanks for having me, by the way. So yeah, you've got by 2030, you got 2.7 million boomers expected to retire, right? So for every five boomers retiring, you got two people, millennials, Gen Z entering the trades, right? So there's a gap there that you can see.
Yeah.
Article in the Washington Post earlier this year says 450,000 manufacturing jobs are open now. That was maybe beginning of the second quarter. If you look to like 2032, that's 1.9 million. The Manufacturing Institute says that's 2.1 million by 2030. So you've got two figures. Both of them are huge, right? Uh, Employer difficulty, 70% of firms are reporting trouble filling roles. I mean, there's a lot of skilled labor positions available that are open. Not enough people that want them. That's just kind of where we're at.
Yeah. So, a lot of what we end up doing in the work, when we bring technology to companies is finding ways to work better. And I know there's been a lot of talk that kind of bothers me, in the last year or so around, AI or technology like wiping out jobs. And I think the thing I've seen to be more true is that it's more about augmenting and figuring out how people can do, an individual job better. Like it's really hard to completely replace someone. And especially I got to imagine in trades and in manufacturing where, you know, um, to a large extent, you still people in the mix is really, really important. And, so I wonder if like, some of the equation here is, if your number is for every five retiring, two come in, it seems to be kind of a more of an imperative to find out a better way of doing things. And maybe we can get to the problem later of how do we get more people in those jobs, or interested in those fields. But, what's your take on this idea of, helping those two out of five? How do we transition into a world where, they're better equipped to do the work they're supposed to do?
I don't think you have a choice, Mike. Right? I mean, like, and you can go back to the first thing you said about AI or automation's going to take jobs. Automation's been taking jobs forever, right? I mean, nobody's pining for the return of the file clerk or the myriad of jobs that are just taken away as that we don't even notice they're gone, right? Like people have been automating stuff for since they invented, the pulley. Um, it's it's imperative that we do it, right? I mean, you're going to need, and you also understand that people in manufacturing sometimes have been burned by this, right? There's a robot arm in the corner under a tarp that they spent 400 grand on that they never used. So I get that there is some
Right.
reservation, but I mean, there's also really you talk about it all the time. There's stuff that you can fix right now, like that we can teach people to fix right now that could probably eliminate some of the bottleneck and make people move a little more efficiently, move a little faster. I mean, I think every place has some great people, right? You just got to
Yeah.
use them better, and every place has some good people, and you got to make them great. I just don't think that I don't think there's any choice. I just don't think there's enough people coming in to take these jobs. The answer is to
Yeah.
be able to do
You know,
more.
it's funny you say that. I think a lot of times when we go into a company, the thing I see first, is not necessarily a chicken with a head off scenario, which is really, really rare. It's more like every job and at every handoff is a little clunky. And so, if you look at, where technology can impact, say manufacturing business, it's like, from, when you get the order from the customer, there's a really clunky way to collect inexact specs. And then you go back and forth for 5 weeks. And then when you hand it off, some of the parts aren't exactly right and you're not sure where you're going to get them from. And then that takes 2 weeks. And then maybe you spec one thing different and it's a different cost. And that just all the way down the line to all the way to, we have a client we're working with right now where it's like they occasionally build the wrong thing because someone makes a change and it doesn't make it into the bill of materials kind of thing. And so like, even just like think about it, I think there's a specter of, AI and automation as this like evil. Like I think the first thing to do that most companies can win on is like just optimize what you're already doing. And really when we think about like, there's this 5-2 ratio that I'm going to think about for a long time. If it's something where, it turns out you just don't, you're sort of over capacity because you didn't need all those people. And I'm not advocating for, getting rid of people. I'm just advocating for like, let's fund growth with efficiency. And then you don't have to add more people as you grow. I think that's kind of a big message. Especially as maybe there's an effort to, return more manufacturing to the States and such like that. That seems to be where big wins can happen. I'm curious for you about, in terms of like looking for talent, you spend a lot of time out there. What do you think? What's the barrier that people need to think about why not get into these jobs? Like, what do you think? Just what's happening in the world that why people don't want to get into trades as much?
I mean, I think there's probably, I mean, there's some stats, right? I mean, there's
Yeah,
some stats that 38% of Gen Z had a stigma about the trades, right? Like
yeah,
you're not going to bust your ass in the breaking your back like I did, kid. You're going to sit in an office, whatever it might be, right? And I think there's some of that probably that existed, and
yeah.
uh, so you're going to go to college, whatever it takes. That's what you're going to do, and I think that's kind of starting to back up a little bit. I mean, I think that there are people now. I mean, I think there's
Right.
another stat out there that says 56% of millennials or Gen Z view the trades as a viable option over college. It's definitely cheaper, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and it's a really great way. I mean, you can still build a really great career in it, right? I think there's a little stigma probably with Gen X, right? And I think
Sure.
that's probably going away a little bit. I think you're going to start to see these positions filled, but uh, in the meantime, I mean, you're going to keep looking for people. You're going to find a couple of good people because there's still plenty out there, right? Another thing that these manufacturers and skilled trades, the hiring teams need to be ready for is you need to put people in a position to succeed, right?
Hmm.
Like if you're fighting for top talent out there, you gotta make sure your stuff's ready, right? Like you've got to be fully automated. You got to be able to put somebody in a position where they're using the new cool stuff so that they can succeed at their job, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you can't
You
just you can't expect somebody to just come into your old factory operating on a archaic system with only 70-year-old Kevin knows how to run the machine in the back. You can't expect that
yeah.
anybody to want to come into that situation.
What do you think that? So knowing, having interviewed a lot of people in the last few years here, what do you think that's like? So think about from the candidate's point of view. Like if I'm interviewing a couple different jobs, and we said like how many manufacturing jobs are open. That says to me that that in a way it's sort of the market. The labor has more of a choice. So if like I got a choice where I can go, I'm probably thinking about what that's like. Is that kind of the case? Do you think?
Let's be clear though, it is skilled labor, right? I mean, like
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about. We're talking
Sure.
about highly skilled people because I'm sure that there's people that can watch this that maybe are having a little bit of trouble, finding work right now, and I don't want to, belittle that at all. I mean, we're talking about people that have specific skills, right? And I think that I think you're right. I mean, I think if you asked any place, like you talk to CEOs of manufacturing companies all the time, right? And they'll probably say, yeah, we've got some people, but we don't have enough good people, right? That's probably what they
Hmm.
say, right?
Yeah.
And that's the key. So yes, top talent is a choice. They have a
Yeah.
challenge, a choice between, probably 2, 3 different places, and it's really going to depend on the situation and the nest you put them in.
Yeah. And so like setting them up for success. It's funny. I hear a lot of CEOs talk a lot about in the last couple of years more about what their onboarding process is like. And it used to be something that was not necessarily like overlooked, but just sort of like here's how this works. Okay, kid, let's go. And now it's more like, we're going to make sure you're really in a position to succeed, because I think people have realized both there's a stickiness factor around. I think when people quit, they quit quickly because like this isn't for me. But also like if they're not supported in their job and what they're trying to do, like it's really difficult. And from the employer's point of view, like you get, what you don't want people doing is like mistakes cost money. So when there's a process or a part of the role that like doesn't make sense to someone and they make something up. One of the things that we've looked a lot at is this idea of workarounds. And I got a quote from Tim Dan Megan on one of the podcasts recently that was a workaround is solving the problem without addressing the issue. And like you're just like a temporary fix, and like so many companies are just like temporary fix on temporary fix. And I gotta imagine the mental load on an employee of just like, I'm always like, I can't just do my job. It's always like I gotta figure out how to do something. I've got to, I've got this side spreadsheet I use because our systems don't work, so I keep my own thing. Like how many people have that phantom system on the side? That's gonna cause churn, I think. I mean, that's not a pleasant place to be. I mean, is that something you think about at all?
Yeah, I think I mean, for sure, right? I mean, and you can't have it just operate in a silo either with nobody watching it because then nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
But I think that you know, you talked a little bit about training, and that's pretty important, right? I think another thing you have to know if you're an employer is what you have, right? Like, I mean, there's, stuff that we do internally and stuff that, we've offered other companies where it's like, look, let's take a look at the people that you have and let's see who's on board with this change, right? Like, because
Yeah.
there's some people that are hungry for change, right? I want the new stuff. I want what's cool. I want to make this easier. And then some people that are just like, hey, I've done it this way forever and it works. And there's room for both, right? But I mean, I think you've got to align the right people with the right position, and that can eliminate some of the bottleneck right there.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious, kind of coming in with a different idea to add to the conversation here. You spent a lot of time on like testing platforms and like the numbers behind assessments and things like that. And we're trying to optimize who we're looking for and who we find. I'm curious when you think about applying that to the kind of skilled labor roles that we're talking about. What do you think are some of the overlooked skills and characteristics of people? And like, what do you look for to help like increase your odds of finding someone who's really going to work out?
Honestly, Mike, I I love career change people. Love it. And I think the main reason that I love it so much is because they want to be here, right?
Hmm.
Like if you have somebody that is let's take a skilled trade or even a programmer, right? Like at our company. These are jobs that a lot of them had when they were 22 years old, right? They went to school, they were an apprentice if you're in the trades, right? And then, or maybe you
Yeah,
went to a boot camp or you went to college to become a programmer, right? So this is what they've done. It's what they've done since they were 22. It's what they've always done,
yeah,
what they knew they were going to do. And maybe you get burnt out. Maybe it wasn't, I mean, the job you wanted at 22 or 18 or 19 isn't necessarily the job you want when you're 35, right?
hmm,
It's not how you envision yourself. So I mean, when I see people that have gone through a career change, right? It's people that really want to be in the position they're in, right? Whether it be a developer, whether it be working for an HVAC company or a repairman, things like that, a mechanic. These people that love it, like they went to school as full grown people to do it, to learn it, to master it, right? And I think those people, it's just when I see that jumps out on a resume to me,
hmm.
like, okay, this is the person I'm going to talk to because this person wants it, this person loves it, this person's going to own it. Grit,
No,
determination, all those things.
that's really true because you think about the decisions that we make if you went to college that you made when you were 17 or however old you were, um, whatever those stats are on the fully formed cortex, like
Sure.
was that
Yeah. Yeah.
did I make an informed decision? And I'm not doing exactly what I went to school for. Neither are you.
Right.
Um, and yet some people do. Some people pick right. I
Absolutely.
have a niece who knew she was going to be a doctor from day one, and that is what she's doing, and that'll work out. And that's some people know that and see that, and but a lot of careers aren't. And I think the idea of coming into your adulthood and being like, oh, here's I found the thing that I'm really passionate about. And one of the things that might be different about technology that was true for me was, in a way, some of the jobs that you could have didn't exist when I went to college. And to date ourselves, like I went to college when the internet became like a thing. Like I remember
Oh, yeah.
handing in an assignment on a disk for the first time in my junior year. Those, oh my God, this is amazing. And now that just seems like so crazy. Um, and so, it's possible that things might exist that, in the future that don't exist now. Whereas maybe in the trades, it's more of a thing that's like, it's been around for longer. Maybe tools changed a little bit, and maybe the machines and like CNC stuff is getting really cool and
Right, no, for
computerized and
sure.
all that kind of stuff. And like you mentioned, robots in the corner. Well, maybe they take the tarp off because they finally figured out how to use it now. Um, I really feel like it's they're like, no matter what field you're in, there's always change happening. Some of it's the same. Some of it is new and increases over time. But that idea of coming to it when you're older is really interesting because that's when you've actually got the light bulb comes on. That kind of thing. So I really get behind that. When you look on, you mentioned grit. Like, what are some of the things you do to dig around and find grit when talking to someone like for the first time?
I think it might be a little cliche, and it's kind of it's a recruiting tool that people use all the time. But
Hmm.
it's like, tell me about a time when you failed, right?
Hmm.
Uh, and if somebody's going to say, yeah, they put me in this position, I wasn't, I knew it wasn't going to work, and it didn't work, and I told them it wasn't going to work, and it didn't work. Okay, but if they're like, "Yep, you know what? I had it. I set it up. You know what? I made this one mistake. It's
Yeah.
exactly what I did, and I made this mistake, and it didn't work. And man, we fixed it, and it cost us a couple days, but we got through it. And I took a little bit of heat for it, but man, I never made that mistake again. Like, there's just different ways you can, like you and I both know, we've been talking to candidates for a long time. You can kind of tell when somebody has learned things,
Mm.
when they've seen some stuff and learned some stuff versus seen some stuff and are curmudgeon about it, or I
Yeah.
mean, difference between, toxic behavior and somebody who's willing to, learn from it and move on.
How about the flip side of that? How about what do you look for someone who interviews amazing and yet it's a show, and when they show up it's not as advertised? What have you thought about or done to try and ferret that one out?
It's funny, right? Because you kind of have your little bingo card of buzzwords, right? And as
Okay.
soon as you get to bingo, you're like, okay, wow, you got there in 25 seconds. That's a new one.
Okay. What's
And
on the card? What's on your buzzword bingo?
oh, come on, don't do that to me. It changes all the time, right? But it's another thing that you can see, like, especially when we interview developers, right? Like, you can just kind of tell. Uh, I specifically say I want people from Chicago, right? Because we were
Yeah.
hybrid. We're in the office more days
Yeah.
of the week than we're not, right? But still, people interview from South America, and you could just
Yeah.
kind of tell because they've got a fake sun in the back, or
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
It's funny. I think for me the risk is always it's really it's what's the right word? It's always attractive to hire someone like you. Right. So sometimes I find myself judging someone on some of the things that I try to do. And that's almost never the thing that is the most important, right? So sometimes you need to look for kind of what's underneath. And one of the things I liked about some of the assessment stuff is it takes the kind of the personality bias out of it. Like, we want to make a good, fair, just clear-headed decision. And for me, it kind of cleans up the edges of, like, if I'm not sure about something, like, honestly, in hiring, this is probably true for anyone. Like, if you're not sure in your gut, the answer is a no. Like, it's like the the gut doesn't quite know how to make it all the way up to the consciousness directly, but like, listen, because it's trying to tell you something. And we often talk about how few times we've been wrong about um, someone like that. Does that resonate for you at all?
I think and I think I read the words off your lips, even though you didn't say them. It's like, you kind of use the data to reinforce what you already think, right? Like, it's what is it, like the baseball stats, right? Like, if baseball prospectus or whatever it is, where they say, here's what has happened,
Hmm.
right? It's not predictive of the future. It's telling you here's what has happened, right?
Yeah.
And you still need to use the eye test, and you're still going to do these things to see if it equals the back of the baseball card, right? That's what the same data we use,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whatever soft skills assessments you might do, you know, you want them to reinforce what you already think, right? And if there is an outlier, right? If there is something that you see in the assessment, then it's definitely something you can address again, right? I mean, it's not
Yeah.
like you have to make the decision based on either. Uh, but it can be like, hey, this one thing showed up here. Why don't we talk about that?
Yeah.
Um, or it's just very clear that hey, you might be going through something here. Is there something you want to talk about? Because
Yeah.
it shows up in different spots on those things.
I will tell you, to your credit, a lot of the choices that you've urged us into that were kind of grit over maybe like raw, like like our coding test, like grit over coding test score, I think has worked more than coding test score over grit. I think that's sort of that's a message you hear a lot on lots of different kind of conversations online right now that like that's a really important one, and we all know it's important, but yeah, I think we people lean toward, maybe I expose my own where I'm going, but like, I will be someone who's like a really fun, gregarious person seems like a great person to hire, and they aren't always. Like you really need like that grit to like get through the hard stuff. And um, we've talked about having like, like the skills to get through that are probably more important, like consistency. Like we even think about like I'd rather have someone who is completely reliable at a B plus than someone who can be an A plus and a D, and not, you're not sure which one you're going to get. And so, where we started here was like what's happening in manufacturing and skilled labor. And I think the answer is probably, the high level for me is there are a few people available in the market now. There might be a few more based on like changing perceptions, whatever.
Sure, sure.
But you're going to have to do better through efficiency. You're going to have to do better through hiring better. You're going to have to all these things. You have to level up to be competitive in the future because it's just getting tougher. And and I think people will have more choice. Like, what's your kind of parting thought on like what if you're in one of those companies right now? What's the best idea to do in the next, say, year around your skilled labor?
Use all the tools that you have, Mike, right?
Mm,
I mean, I think it's and, it's funny because, we talked a little about we don't want to age ourselves. You gotta listen to the newer people, to the younger people, because they just kinda have their finger on the pulse of the what's new
yeah,
and what's cool and what they wanna do, right? I mean, you gotta listen to them because the next generation is gonna be younger than them even, right? And I think there are people that are going into these skilled positions, and I think they're gonna wanna, for lack of a better word, they're gonna wanna do cool stuff. Uh, so I think that it's really use all the tools you got. And if you're in hiring, right, there's ways you can automate some stuff so that you don't have to so that you can kind of skim through some resumes to make sure you're only talking to the people that are local that you want or that have the five or
yeah,
six specific skills that you want. Like there's a way if you're looking at hundreds of apps a day, and some people are, right? There's a way to kind of automate some of that. There's definitely a way to use some of these soft skills tests to reinforce what you already think, and make sure that you're using all of your direct skills tests in there as well, right? Like we do coding tests, and I'm sure everybody else in these, uh, in these other skilled labor positions have stuff that they can do to kind of weed out people quickly.
yeah. Listen, this has been great. Thanks for coming on. We should have you on as kind of a regular guest because I think tracking this and some of the other issues around talent are really important for any industry, and love to have you keep track on those developments as they come along.
Yeah, right on. It's been fun, and I can talk forever, so let's do it.
Thanks for listening to the Digital Transformist. This is Mike LaVista, and if you like that content, subscribe so you can get notified of new content when it comes out.